My next guest, Victoria Churchill, Daily Mail. Welcome back to the James Show. And with that, I'm just trying to get people to understand that this cancel culture isn't what we were griping about, for the light and transient causes people were getting fired for a few years ago. Like, hey, we found a tweet where you used a naughty word when you were 17 in high school, and so now you have to be ruined. This cancel culture purge, I think, is totally worth it.
It is definitely a very interesting time, especially on the right. I've been covering this for the Daily Mail, really just kind of some fractures that we're seeing on America's political right, and have been seeing, really since the Trump election and inauguration, ever since everybody on the right got their guy in, they've kind of been coming after each other. And really this week, since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, that has been shown. I think more even so than before. But, I think that in itself really goes to show that Charlie was such an anchor and such a critical part of the American right, because I think really he stopped a lot of people from fighting and from saying the things that they've been saying about each other and about him over the past few days. And, again, I think that really underscores his importance and his influence. Again, not just on young people that watched his shows and went to his events and saw him on college campuses, but also on top influential political and media leaders, of course, not only in the U.S., but really even around the world. And so, again, I think that really adds to the gravity of the situation when you had people that, have really been thrilled about his death, which I find absolutely abhorrent. Of course, not only the act, but just the reaction as well. And, again, it's really been waded into, again, on the right, whether these people should be canceled, what that looks like, whether they should lose their jobs, whether they should be fired. I covered this, I believe it was on Sunday, wrote up a story about, again, kind of this debate on the right. The right has been canceled for so long, and now really are we asking people to be canceled? And again, it's just been interesting to see some of their reactions that have come out about this, because some people on the right think, free speech is absolute. Free speech is without consequences, or should be without consequences. But then there's some people that are taking more of a middle ground. We're saying, you can say what you want to say, but also be prepared to face the consequences of your actions. Well, and then again, I kind of just a final note on that. I think there's a difference maybe between people in positions of public power, teachers, legislators, things like that, and also kind of private citizens, and depending on their job. Again, that's also kind of been, should we treat a teacher that says, I'm so glad Charlie Kirk was killed, the same way that we treat, a plumber or a nurse?
Oh, I totally agree. So, Victoria Churchill, we had Democrat senators have a press conference asking for or demanding the FCC chair resign because the firing of Jimmy Kimmel is state-sponsored censorship of free speech. That doesn't fly with me. How does that fly with you?
No, that doesn't fly with me. In the Trump era, which again I think really shows where even not just the American right, but where the bulk of the American population is, right? Remember, Trump won the popular vote, which again I think a lot of people forget. So I like to remind them of that, a majority of America, not only in swing states, but across the country voted for this man to be president, which again, people forget about. But, again, really looking at this idea that, just America, I think the tone obviously has shifted. It's shifted in the past year. I think since the Trump assassination attempt, I think it shifted a little bit more towards the right. And again, I want to say not really necessarily even towards the right, but what I would consider common sense. Again, believing in American values, believing in freedom of speech and the Constitution and the Second Amendment. Again, these ideas that this country was founded on and that people, really agree to live under, right? Because, you can leave, right? Like there's been tons of stories that have come out since Trump was elected or since he was inaugurated that people aren't happy living under his rule as they see it, and they've left, right? So again, freedom to live in America is also freedom to leave.
Hell yes.
If you are unhappy. Yeah. And so, again, I think really not only Jimmy Kimmel, but also The Late Show before him canceled just a few months ago as well. People aren't interested, right? I mean, I think his writers are making, probably over $100,000, if not more. And if there's just not an audience for that, and again, I know you and I have talked about for months, just the changing role of the media.
Yeah, I hear they're losing money.
If people aren't buying in. Yeah,
that's probably a big part of it. All right, I got to run. Victoria Churchill.
I work for a media outlet, but yeah, we cover this all the time, especially cable news. Nobody watches it anymore.
All right, check her out at the Daily Mail. This is Victoria Churchill on the James Show again. Good to have you. Good stuff. Thank you, ma'am.
Awesome.